It's early. I'm drinking my Ely coffee, and I have allergies. So if I have to stop and sneeze, I'm going to stop and sneeze, and I'm not going to stop recording. You'll have to excuse me. It's allergy time. It's April 2020. COVID-19 lockdown continues. Um, I want to talk this entry 12 about my dad and music in my house. I was really lucky to grow up amongst a man who I think probably where I get some of it of my boredom factor is from him, and or just being interested, not really boredom, being interested in a lot of different things and not just being one dimensional like that. Uh, Although I don't have any musical instrument talent, I took piano for a hot minute, and that fell through the cracks. I wish I'd had more patience and had stuck with it, but I didn't, and they didn't really require that I did. So I don't have that. My love was dance, but I do like, and luckily for me, Gerry and I are in it together. We like a lot of different things. We go down a lot of different avenues and paths, and there are people that have one hobby and that's what they do their whole life, and they live in one house and that's what they do their whole life, and they have the same furniture and that's what they do. And my partner and I are not like that, and so that's good. But in a way, my parents were neither in different ways. My dad had a lot of different interest in all of the things that I've talked about, all the different things that he did during his lifetime. My mother was of the more of the constantly changing the furniture, changing the curtains, changing, but in different, they were different. So I think I'm a combination of that because I am not afraid of change. Gerry and I changed a lot. My parents only moved twice in my lifetime. Once when I was at home and a kid, and they moved, and then after I was married, they moved one more time, and that's it. And so they were settled in that way. But uh, my father had all of these interests. And one thing that he did when I was young, in the house where I was a child, uh, he had all these friends that had musical talent, as did he. And he was a really good guitar player, and he could just kind of play by ear. He could read music, but he could also just listen to a song and then play it. He didn't brag about it. He wasn't showy about it at all. Quite the contrary. He was a very quiet kind of guy with his music. But there were certain songs that I would sit and just ask him to play. Some of them with made up songs because he made them up. And there was one, and it was I called it the puppy dog song, and it was because that's what I would. It sounded like it didn't have any words. It was just music, but in my head it was like the puppy dog, the puppy dog. I don't know. It's hard to explain. But he had the whole bit. He had the stand for the sheet music, and he had lots of sheet music. And again, that's one of those things I wish I had. He would go and buy, but his friends would come over, and they all had different talents, but mainly it was like guitars, electric guitars with amps, microphones. I'm sure the neighbors loved it. I never did know that it was a problem because I loved it. I loved dancing to it, and they would just jam into the hours of playing, all this great music. But when he wasn't jamming with his friends with the amps and the mics and the different kinds of instruments and singing and all of that, uh, he would bring home he would just bring home random instruments. Uh, he brought home a mandolin one time, and it was a really beautiful, beautiful instrument. And a mandolin has, if you don't know, has a really different sound, and he could play that so well. It was really unusual, and I loved that he played that. But he had these great guitars. He had Gibson guitars. That those were pretty much what he had, were the Gibson. And he had a whole lot of picks. You were always finding guitar picks everywhere. But then when Brandon was growing up, he wanted a guitar. And so one day Daddy showed up and he had something for Brandon. And Brandon was a young teen at that time. I'm going to say maybe 15. I'm guessing. I can't remember exactly his age. But Daddy had this obviously used guitar and had it kind of as a gift for Brandon. And Brandon, being the polite person that he is, profusely thanked his granddad. That's what he called him, granddad. And he was happy. It's like, oh, I have a guitar. This is great. And then Daddy was a little bit disappointed because it was a joke, and he thought Brandon might be disappointed like this, and I wanted a guitar and this. But of course, Brandon, who had too much respect for his grandfather, even if he had been disappointed, he would never have shown it. He never said to me that he was. And then Daddy went back to the car and brought the real guitar, and it was this beautiful Ovation guitar that he had gotten for Brandon. And so I I have such an appreciation and love of music, and so and guitars and guitarists, and when I hear great guitarists like Eric Clapton, for example, and you see him in concert and you see his magical fingers, and you know what that does to fingers. It hurts, and it makes them all, callousy and everything. But I do think about my dad because he loved playing the music and just, picking up the guitar and picking out a tune and as I said, nothing braggy or showy, even when they had all these great into the night jam sessions. Um, and my dad had a wide interest in different kinds of music, blues. He's the one that introduced me to the blues, Jimmy Reed, excuse me, uh, all kinds of great music, and that's what he would play. And so when I see these great guitarists, I mean, I'm talking great guitarists, those who sink back into it and maybe they don't know how great they really are, but they have a modesty about them and about their music. Brandon uh, can read music. He took piano himself. He played the trombone in the band for a hot minute. He played in the band for 1 year, and then he was going into high school. And the band instructor the director was also junior high and high school. And then Brandon was first chair, and he wanted Brandon to play in high school. And Brandon didn't want to. He gave it up. It wasn't for him. But it's really nice when you are surrounded by music and you're surrounded in that world. And for me, I have such an appreciation. So as I have gone through the years with Gerry, who was a rock music reviewer, and really met through Gerry's work these great musicians, I really got to meet them with Gerry. It's a whole different world for sure. Oh yeah. But all of that started for me at such a young age, right in my very own home, where I had this father that would just, put his head down and just play, and then he would sing into the microphone with his buddies and jam. And when it's your father, it is especially interesting to see your father in that kind of different role. And excuse me. And so I am ever so grateful for that, because to this day, when I hear and I mean a great guitarist, uh, I have such a deep appreciation of it. And that's just another of my father's tales.